Welcome back to another episode of Hello Ladies, where feminism meets pro wrestling. I am one of your hostess with the mostest. Yeah, we'll go with that.
That's cute.
Sabrina.
And I'm MJ.
We're getting into spooky season, so a little Beetlejuice.
Never heard nobody.
Yeah. Well, except for if you're a politician doing things you shouldn't during a show. But we're gonna skip over that. But so we're going to be talking today about positive masculinity in wrestling. Usually toxic masculinity gets a lot of airtime, rightfully so, but there is also positive masculinity that you can find within wrestling. So we're going to take some time today to talk about that.
That's right. I'm very excited.
Yes. So one of my first examples that I have, and it should surprise absolutely no one, the best friends and
Yeah.
like how that group supports each other. How they lift Chris Statlander up, and they're always saying things like how she's the muscle and things like that. And why this is important is because like these are male athletes. They are very physically imposing. I mean, Chuck's very tall. Trent is he looks grizzled in a positive way. I mean that in a very positive way, like with the beard and Orange Cassidy is a perfect human being, and even like when you pull in Danhausen as well, like they're just such a supportive group of each other. Like they show really good, healthy friendship amongst each other. Even when Trent and Orange were kind of going back and forth with the whole title thing, like their friendship survived that. And they're just wonderful. I mean, their hug, you got to give the people what they want.
That's right. I knew you were going to say best friends, and I was excited about that. Of course, I could go on about Danhausen forever, but like on his Whatnot lives too, he has a low tolerance for any like BS in the comments. He's very quick to call things out and say like that's stupid, and he does it in like the most Danhausen hilarious way too, to where it's like calling people out. And he's created this culture within himself too online to where there's not like there's just not that, it's like the only group that I actually ever would utilize on Facebook is the Danhausen Fanhausen group, because it's just so positive and cool.
Yes,
And like everyone's just hilarious. But and I was thinking about Chuck Taylor too, so I thought of you with the best friends, because I was thinking about like what a badass he is, and like how he's had some of the best, like coolest, like independent matches ever, and seeing him just be brutal. Like I think back to like a match with him and Johnny Gargano, and how they were just throwing each other into tables, and it's like you have like these like badass brutal dudes who still uplift like the women around them and like speak completely positively about like Statlander and other women on the roster, and it's just cool.
Yes, and the love that man has for his dog, it's beautiful. I mean, getting a shirt that matches your dog, I mean, I think that's positive masculinity as well. I also love the fact that Trent is big on rescues and encourages others to rescue animals instead of going to puppy mills or breeders. So
Yeah.
he's
I
very
know. I think it might have been on a TikTok where you touched on this too, but because I still want to read AJ Mendez's book, but I know that her and Trent used to date, and how it sounded like she had nothing but positive things to say about him.
Yeah, she said he was her first for a lot of things, and that he he would make her handmade cards and handmade gifts and things like that.
Aww.
And it was her first real experience with a very positive family, which who's shocked that Sue is a loving mother behind the scenes? No one. So
Mhm.
yeah. And I also think the way that they treat Trent's mom and like the love that they have for her is like also another sign of like just positive masculinity. Like, and no one makes fun of Trent for like loving his mom.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think back to like the Attitude Era where it's like how many shots did wrestlers take at moms and like women in general, and it's like I that's never happened with that group at all. It's just
Yeah.
wonderful to see.
Yeah. What's an example you have?
Um, I think of Rey Mysterio when I think of just the most positive masculinity ever.
Hmm.
He, anytime that man has a microphone in front of him, he is thanking Angie for the support that she's given him throughout this career. They're like one of my favorite wrestling couples ever. You know, like I just adore the hell out of them and like their kids. It's so funny seeing Dominic Mysterio as a heel, you know, because you can just tell he's got a heart of gold, and their daughter as well. It's just like the sweetest, most loving family that like it's just it's beautiful. I have always been a big Rey Mysterio fan, and I'm obviously a big Dominic Mysterio fan, but yeah, anytime like his Hall of Fame speech thanking Angie and like like countless interviews that I've watched with Ray where he's talking about how she would send him money while wrestling just to support him, and they would live well below their means doing anything they could just to kind of push his career, and how she's just been a nonstop supporter, and like he's always the first to shout out his wife, and I think it's so beautiful.
Yeah. Um, and Rey Mysterio was also on my list because of everything you mentioned. And also, before Dominic was a heel, the relationship that he and Dominic had on screen, you don't see a lot. You don't see a lot of healthy father son relationships portrayed in wrestling in general. I mean, you think of like Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon, and I don't think that's very healthy, behind the scenes either, but certainly not on screen. So it was a breath of fresh air to see like a loving father son duo. And I kind of love too that like it took a lot for Ray to finally be like, fine, we'll do this Captain Crunch match and or not Captain Crunch, Cinnamon Toast Crunch match.
Yeah.
And um even then, like it was because he had the gall to, go after his mom or well, Ray's wife, Angie. And it's just like, nope, we've crossed the line now, buddy.
Yes. I love how they built that whole thing up.
Hmm. Yeah. But yeah, Rey Mysterio is very like I feel like he's also, I mean, obviously Dominic got involved in wrestling very young.
Yeah.
Um, and he tells this story about how like when he was a kid, the teachers actually pulled him aside to see if he was okay because they thought it was and he was completely fine. He thought it was weird that they thought it was real.
Yeah. And how Ray was checking in with him every step of the way to make sure he was okay. Like even
Yeah.
back then in a time where you and I could go back and forth about parenting during the 90s, but just seeing him as just like an outstanding parent, like even then, you know, and in the early 2000s.
Yeah, yeah, making sure that his kid was on board the entire step of the way. It wasn't like an exploitative thing. Um,
Yes.
and I mean, it's turned out really well now. I mean, it feeds into his career now. So it's beautiful to see.
Yeah, we'll give deadbeat dad Rey Mysterio a pass on this one.
Yes, yeah. Um, Keeping in line with dads, I have Seth Rollins actually on my list because of how much he uplifts like his family. And also I'm a big fan of anyone who breaks gender norms. So his outfits, I mean, wrestling has always been there pushing the envelope with what's acceptable for men to wear.
Yeah.
Um and like Seth Rollins is definitely one of those people. Like the outfits he wears are fantastic. That's one of the things I love. Like when I hear his music, it's like, what is he going to be wearing this time? But yeah, he is just so in like absolutely over the moon in love, doesn't care, wants people to know actually how much he loves his wife and his daughter, and that being a good dad is important to him.
Yeah, that's a great one. It's so sweet seeing them in interviews, you know?
Mhm.
They have such love for each other, and I love I love how they are so like competitive with each other, and he has to kind of scale back because I know he's so competitive. It's so cute.
Like when Becky beat him for the Up Up Down Down championship, and
Yes.
he had to like give it to her, and he got down on like his knee, and like, and then he cut it short after like saying all these other things. He's like, okay, now I have to go throw a tantrum.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. He's like, that's I'm gonna stop there because I'm gonna start to get really angry.
Hmm. Yep.
That would be me.
Yeah.
That would so be me. I'll give Ryan his roses, and then I'm like, I'm gonna stop now because now I'm like turning into a sore loser. Goodbye.
Yeah. And that's an important thing to know about yourself when your cutoff point is like, I have to go scream into a pillow for a little bit. So proud of you though. Bye.
Totally. Oh
And,
man.
and that's supportive as well. You don't have to be the best loser necessarily. You just have to be like, I'm so proud of you. I'm really upset for myself. Goodbye.
That's right. I love it. It's not about perfection, it's about support.
Yep.
Okay, my next one. So I'm literally wearing my GCW shirt because I guess this is like an overarching one, but I love GCW and what they stand for. It's anti-transphobia, you know, they're against homophobia, they are against racism, they're against sexism. If you are in their crowd and you say anything that's any of those things, you know, and I love how they have a lot of like intergender like matches, and they don't even think twice about it. You know, you have people like Sawyer Wreck, you have people like Rena, people like Masha Slamovich who compete against men on a regular basis and are just badass and just constantly have men who lift them up and elevate them and showcase them. And a lot of the times the women are champions. You know,
Mhm.
Masha was the GCW men's or just world champion, and she beat Nick Gage, who's beloved, you know, in that.
Yeah.
And she got like a standing ovation, like a round of applause. Nobody saw that win coming. Um, so them as an organization, I would think, but in particular, I have to give it to Effie, who I adore, who is like everything to me. I ran into Effie at Starcast, and I literally was so just like could not play it cool. You know, I don't know. I feel like Danhausen and Effie are the two exceptions where I just could not play it cool, you know? And everybody was kind of giving me a hard time about it afterwards. They're like, he's just a person, MJ. And I was like, he's everything. You know, like as a queer person, like seeing that representation, like just means so much to me. And yeah, it's just beautiful. Everything that he does with like his big gay brunches, constantly speaking up about the talent around him, like especially female talent. He'll never not say something good about Allie Katch, you know, from Bussy, his tag team partner, and just like it's just beautiful. And he doesn't skip a beat. He's not gonna let anybody talk down to anybody that is around him, you know. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoy Effie as well. I haven't seen any GCW. I won't lie about that because they're a little on the bloodier side.
Sure.
And if you've been listening to us at all, you know I don't do well with that.
Yeah. It can get pretty rough sometimes.
Yeah, I have a weak constitution when it comes to blood.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. Some of them get kind of crazy, to be honest. Yeah.
Um uh let's see. So I have Brian Danielson on my list.
Yeah, I
We've
did
talked
too.
Yeah, we've talked about him before in this. I think there's so many different parts of him that like are positive, like are examples of positive masculinity. But he like even something where how he talked about his mental health at a time when it really wasn't talked about, especially for men, especially in sports. I mean, not that like everyone's like racing to talk about it now, but it's certainly more of a topic than it was even 10 years ago. And I think he is a big reason why, because he had a platform being Total Divas and Total Bellas to really talk about that. And he is like, nobody on earth is going to question his masculinity, even though like for a wrestler he's a smaller guy, and like he's so wholesome, I want to say, like in so
Yeah.
many ways. He is, you can tell that like the sun rises and falls on his family. Like he's very much one of those people who you can tell his life was all about wrestling, and then he met Bree, and then they had Birdie, and then Buddy, and like his priorities have entirely shifted. And he also seems like he is a father that loves his children equally. He's not someone who is just like, oh, my boy, my boy, my boy.
Yeah.
And I don't see him forcing like gender stereotypes on either one of his kids either. Just like anytime I've seen like clips of him with his kids, or like how he talks about his family, you can it makes my heart swell.
I agree. It's beautiful. I would be hard pressed to find anyone who'd say anything negative about Bryan Danielson. He's so wonderful.
Other than the Miz when he has a microphone in his hands.
I should have specified in relation to his family.
Yeah.
Because I know him and AJ Styles also don't get along very well, and I would love to
Mm.
be a fly on the wall in a room with a conversation behind the scenes with them. But yeah, no, I don't think anyone would ever say he's not amazing to his kids and his family and his wife. And yeah.
Yeah. Um oh, and that whole like Connor's cure. Oh,
Oh gosh, yeah.
I mean, he just went above and beyond, and he wasn't like afraid to like show how that affected him either. Um and yeah, everything that man does, like I've never seen him do something and have been like, well, that is top notch toxic masculinity right there. Which is funny because like he's he's someone who's been involved in some pretty like brutal brawls, but that's not necessarily toxic.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that you called that out too, because it's interesting how if somebody doesn't watch wrestling, I think they would associate that maybe with toxic masculinity, like this ultra violence. But then when you see the promo work behind the things, when you see everything behind the scenes, it's like it's different. It's kind of cool as
Mhm.
a fan to witness that.
What they're fighting for.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh my god, my mind went to Mulan. A girl
Oh,
fighting for. Yeah.
oh my God. I would love to see like the wrestlers put on Mulan.
Please take my money.
Right? That would be beautiful. I don't know. New crossover idea, everyone.
Yes. God, I don't even know where to go next with this. There's so many on this list. I feel like I want to say Alpha Academy is what I'm going to say next. I think about how open Chad Gable is about his family and
Mhm.
loving them, and how him and Otis are very supportive of Maxine and her career and like her elevation as a talent, and they literally make a point to give her a moment, on screen and to kind of spotlight her. And I think that for a younger talent, especially a woman, that's really cool to, it's really beautiful to see that for her. It makes me really happy. And I think that that might not have been something that we saw with other talent 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I think that there's just something really special about, Chad and Otis in that way.
Yeah, and especially the fact that it's called the Alpha Academy, right?
Yes.
And there's no way that it should have any like traces of positive masculinity, but it is. I think once they started really laying into the comedy aspect of it, it became clear like that's where they were heading. Even like Maxine getting them to wear like the different outfits and things like that. Um and Otis and Chad are also just very, I behind the scenes too, they're very close. Like I think they live near each other. Um, but like that definitely translates on screen. Like you can see how much they care about each other, and it's beautiful to see.
I agree. It's really cool.
I feel like wrestling is one of the few places where you can see male friendship depicted with various levels, like not just surface level, like there's all these different degrees. You get to see all this history with some guys, and um it you don't and it's been like that, and you don't really get to see that elsewhere. And I think it's because it's sometimes storytelling for a decade or two that you like get to see all these different layers of somebody and their friendship. um that Yeah, usually like they talk about right now this male loneliness epidemic that's going on. And
Yeah.
I would say that like it's probably always been like that. Like it's no secret, at least in America, like with white men. Because that's who most of the studies have always been done on. But like
Yeah.
they die earlier and things like, and like everything points to the fact that they don't have like community that women
Yeah.
tend to build. um so it's great to see like that young boys get to see men having relationships that are, grounded in more than beating somebody up, which it seems like it should only be, right? But like again, I'm going to circle back to the best friends where they have these positive relationships that last for decades, and they just love and support each other.
I love that. And I think you touched on something I think about a lot. Even within the Wrestle Talk community, I think we have men who would have otherwise not have found each other as friends, and wrestling really gives a sense of community.
Hmm.
And I almost feel like it partly is because of this. There's like this safety and this relatability in storytelling that is so beautiful, and that I think that people don't think about in relation to pro wrestling. Like, and I think we see so many cool friendships, and it's like a safe place. It's on your screen, so it's like there's things in wrestling that are normalized that should not be normalized, especially in the
Hmm.
past. But some things that sprinkle through in the present that you're like, "Ah," but it's beautiful when it is like a male friendship or like positive examples of masculinity that are really cool.
Yeah. 100%. um and it is really cool to see it like play out, because you talking about Wrestle Talk, I mean, you do see the male creators who like take time to uplift female creators, or other it's not all I at least the Wrestle Talk that I experience, because I know there are other parts that I do not follow, but the part of Wrestle Talk that I experience, everyone is about promoting each other,
Yeah,
um because like there's enough viewers to go around. Like there's enough people looking at your TikToks to go around. They can follow everybody.
sure. Agreed.
um I don't remember, is it me or you that's supposed to be going now?
Your turn.
My turn. Okay. um well, I have the Golden Lovers as
I
an
knew it.
example.
I thought that was your transition. Like I
Mhm.
almost interrupted you to be like, I think I know where this is going.
Yeah, 100% Golden Lovers. And I love that they have kept it, no one knows, right? Like there's to this day so much speculation.
Sure.
Um and for anyone who's listening to this and doesn't know anything about the Golden Lovers, one, after you finish this podcast, go to YouTube, type in Golden Lovers, and just watch some of their work. It's Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi, and it like how long has this been going on? Like a decade at least. It's got to be more like 15 years, right?
Oh, I don't even know.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that long. Wow.
I feel like it's that long. I'm picturing what Kenny Omega looked like at the
Yes.
beginning to now.
Baby Kenny.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he like is old and decrepit now. By no means. That man is beautiful. Um
Yeah.
young and virile, whatever. But um but like yeah, he was very much so baby Kenny Omega at that point. But it's something that is still like it was just brought up on Dynamite, I think it was last week, about they're gonna strike. Don Callis is going to strike at the heart of Kenny Omega, and it is Kota Ibushi. And just this wow. There's so much storytelling that's gone. I don't even know where to begin with the Golden Lovers. Like there's just so much. Like my brain is failing me right now.
Yeah.
Even when they kind of like split and Kenny went with the Bullet Club, it was still this thing of like he wasn't okay with, attacking Ibushi or anything like that. So it's fantastic storytelling that has spanned companies.
Yep. Absolutely.
I'm guessing you have something that you would like to add to the Golden Lovers.
No, I mean, I like a little bit of mystery in my storytelling, and I love that it kind of has implied things, but also, it kind of makes you stop and go, wait, am I reading too much into this? I really appreciate that about it, and I love how progressive and ahead of its time it really is. And it's progressive and ahead of its time, but it's long overdue at the same time. It's really cool. And I think that like even just spotlighting like a male friendship, for example, in that way is really beautiful. And like it touched like on the intimacies of caring about another man in that way
Mm-hmm.
that I think people in wrestling, like we haven't seen to that extent, in my opinion. I just thought it was really beautiful.
They are pretty much so the only example of that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
The
Other
only
than like
positive example.
Yeah, other than like surface level stuff, like right, you think of like DX, where they're like brothers united, right? Because they've been doing the same thing, they've been in the same business, same industry for so long, and I think as they've aged, we've seen them be a little bit more emotional. But in their youth, you also saw them do some of the most debaucherous, like insane things, completely contrary to the topic of this podcast.
Yeah.
But I digress to say that it's a different representation of friendship, but not on the same level of depth that I see with the Golden Lovers.
Yes. I was thinking of Billy and Chuck. Um,
Yes.
and the queer baiting that happened throughout that entire thing. Like I don't feel like the Golden Lovers are queer baiting. Whereas like
Right.
Billy and Chuck, the marriage ceremony, like what the oh
I know. I know. It's so funny too, because you think of things like there are creators on Wrestle Talk who talk about things like wrestling fan fiction, and then so the Golden Lovers have an entire catalog. It's like that was everything that we saw on screen between those two was just like set the tone for like open the floodgates of even more fan fiction,
well yeah.
within wrestling. Yeah.
I mean they're both beautiful men.
Yeah.
And another thing to touch on there is like they're of different races. So like that's
Yes.
also like they're just like, hey, all of these barriers, all of these, like we're just going to like slap them all down.
I love that. I love that you mentioned that.
Yeah. And Kenny Omega himself has been very he's a big proponent of women's wrestling. Like he's been a big driving force of that, or at least was in AEW when the EVPs had slightly different responsibilities.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's always been someone who, again, he was one of the best wrestlers in the world. Not even arguably, it's arguably that he was the best. Some people will, I'm sure, lose their minds about that all over again. But and to have someone who was doing the Golden Lovers angle, I think at that time. And then also, I don't even want to say angle because it doesn't feel right saying Golden Lovers angle, but like just a part of that. And he's one of the ones that have made it okay to be like a healthy nerd.
Yeah, I love that.
Which is something. So I'm about to go on to a completely different tangent, but
Let's go.
nerdy things have not always, like, women have always been a part of it, but it hasn't always been like a safe space. It still necessarily isn't, depending on what you're looking at. And it wasn't something that like was thought to be like cool and masculine either. But you have so many people now, like in all companies, who are backstage, like really big into video games and D&D and board game, like whatever. It's become like wrestling is a part of Comic-Con now, like,
Yeah.
and has been for a long time. And it's a very natural fit. And I kind of see like as nerd culture is progressing, so is wrestling culture. And it's wonderful to see like that there are spaces opening up now for more people of all sorts of identities to talk about their experiences, and there's something for everybody without, and like it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful.
It is beautiful. I like that. That's cool.
So sorry, I did like 3 things all at once.
No, don't ever apologize. You're good. I think that's a really good point to bring up. And a perfect segue into nerdy men we love, Adam Cole.
Oh yes, baby.
He has his own YouTube channel where he normalizes gaming and people love him for that. He talks about how passionate he is about that. Another man who is never shy about bragging about the talents of his lady, Britt Baker. And also constantly elevating people around him. I would also say that seeing him warm up Mr. MJF in his brochacho for life, which I want that shirt now so bad. But seeing him turn, like the most devious heel, arguably the greatest heel in modern day pro wrestling, turning him into like a tweener type, skewing toward babyface and warming him up to this idea of friendship, and like once again we're being showcased healthy, like, well, ish. Like thinking back to everything, like growth in male relationships and friendship, and like that way that it's kind of been tied into MJF's storyline is really beautiful. And I love it, like seeing 2 men hug all the time, and like literally when you're seeing conflict resolution between men on live TV in real time, and it's like really beautiful and really cool. And like you see the crowd, and like you're surrounded by a crowd of wrestling fans. Undeniably, the percentage is going to be larger. It's going to be more male, right? That's in the audience. And you're hug it out. So it's like you're being encouraged, by the wrestling community, who is largely comprised of men, to hug it out and like work through your issues. And like so many people are rooting for this friendship. And so just seeing the things that Adam brings to that, and like it's a testament to who he is, but also like he's played a heel so much in his professional wrestling career. Meanwhile, just everyone knows he's the sweetheart, just lovely, like golden retriever of a man that like it's cool to literally get to see him being rewarded for being the good guy and for being like this positive masculine figure.
Yes. Yeah. And I think the thing with MJF is also important because MJF has been toxic masculinity to the max.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing here,
to the max.
Yeah. Totally meant to do that. Yes.
You're so good.
But there's the ability for redemption with him, right? Like, but I think it's really important that he's not being like reformed because of a woman. It's because
Yes.
there's a guy in his life who he respects who is like, it's not okay to act like this. And he's like, it's
Yes.
not. And he's like, no, it's not. It's his male friend holding him accountable for his actions. And while he's not where we would like him to be, he is leaps and bounds improved in a really short period of time because of his male friend holding him accountable.
Yes. I love that. Accountability and like positive male influence within a community, within a relationship, like a friendship.
Mm-hmm.
1,000% yes.
Yeah. Um, yeah. And I just love those two.
I do too. I'm literally gonna cry when they when they stop this on-screen bromance, I swear.
At Comic-Con, they have it where you can get a picture with the two of them.
Oh, okay, okay.
And I'm deeply considering it because I think there's also the option of getting one with Adam Cole and Britt Baker.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so upset. Tangent. So they have different panels and now you can sign up online for the panels. Well,
Yes.
I was doing a radio interview at 10 a.m. so I wasn't able to sign in immediately.
Yeah.
And by the time I was able to, they were having a Buffy panel
Oh,
sold out. And oh, the string of curses that came out of my mouth. But that does free me up now where I could get some photos with Adam Cole and MJF and Britt Baker. So
oh my God, that would be so cool. Peer pressure, you have to do it.
yeah, it's like $150.
Oh man.
But also it's like the day, it's my birthday weekend. So
So you have to treat yourself.
right. But yes, back into full wrestling now. Speaking of gamers, the New Day.
I was waiting for it. Yes, yes. I love it. Same page. Same page.
Yeah, and literally, like how they've taken at like unicorns and like anything they touch just turns to like pure gold, and the way they love and support each other. During, I think it was just during the pandemic when they had that little show that they did. I think it was a podcast where they talked about like various issues. One of the things they talked about was Black Lives Matter and the big kickoff to that really was George Floyd's murder. And
Yeah.
I will never forget Big E like just being completely vulnerable and having like a real frank conversation about his feelings, his concerns, his worry, like